Are you prepping for Arnold's at the minute then, Becca, yeah?
Yeah, I fly out in less than 4 weeks.
How's the training going?
It's going well. Like, the Arnold's events, they never typically suit me. Um, I feel like they're never my best events that are kind of chosen. So I know I'm not going to win the competition, and that's fine. Um, some of the events are weak events for me, but I'm just going to go there, try my best, have some fun. It's like, it's just a great opportunity, and it's an opportunity that we never had in the sport even 3 years ago. So.
Well, it's kind of putting yourself out there, and you need to get yourself out there and do all of the things all of the time in as many competitions as possible, I'm guessing. Um, but that thing is just, it's got quite a good reputation, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's a really prestigious event. Like, it's an invitational where only 10 women in the whole world that are invited. It's like to be one of those 10 women that are invited. It's a massive, like, I don't know, it just makes me feel really grateful, like, to have that opportunity to be able to go. Um, it's it's definitely one of the main competitions that I look forward to every year. This year I will be competing a little bit less, I think, though. Give my body a bit of a break. I've done a lot of competitions over the last few years now, and I just need to kind of take a little bit of a chilled out year, I think.
Do you feel you've trained to your peak? Do you think you're in the best condition you've ever been and you're the
Oh God,
strongest?
no. God, no. I There's a lot left to come from me. Even now, I've started working with Lawrence Charlet as my coach, and we're just nitpicking small things that will make such a big difference a few months down the line. I'm looking forward to a good off season with him, so I can work on my weaknesses. I do have a lot of weaknesses, which makes me excited rather than nervous. Like, in my head, like, if I get over these weaknesses, I could be like, hopefully, like, unstoppable, like, in my head. Like, I'm really excited to just kind of get these weaknesses out of the way and come back and just smash it.
So are you feeling you work on your weaknesses, or do you work on both the strengths and the weaknesses just to make sure the strengths are still there?
Um, I feel like there's definitely a balance for it. So working on your weaknesses will help your strengths become stronger, in my opinion. So at the minute, I've got a massive weakness in my hips. Like, my hips have always been really immobile, and improving my hip mobility and the power output that I can bring, like, from my hips, will help my leg drive in so many different events. With my Atlas stones, it'll help my squat, it'll help my deadlift, it'll help my moving events, it'll help everything. So working on my weaknesses will just make my strength stronger.
So it's not really about the main thing is not the strength because it's kind of there. It's about the ability to move the object with the strength. Am I right? Okay, that's interesting because it's people just think you go in the gym and you got to lift the heaviest things to get to be world's strongest woman. It's not the case, is it?
No, like, I am a big fan of utilizing, like, the lightest weights possible to get the most out of them, because it helps you prevent injuries. Like, if you're going into the gym every week maxing out, you're going to tear a muscle, you're going to hurt your back, you're going to have 3 weeks out of the gym, and what are you doing then? You're just regressing. Like, if you actually follow a proper program and peak properly, like, you're less likely to get injured. A couple of months ago, oh, I know it was probably more than that. Somebody asked me, like, what my max deadlift was or what I can deadlift, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, I've not tested my max deadlift in a long time. And they were like, oh, but you're a competing athlete. And I'm like, yeah, but I've not had to, so I won't. Like, I won't lift maximally in the gym if I don't have a competition that requires for it.
Yeah, that's the thing because you what you see at the final event, you've probably never done before, and that's where all
No.
the PBs tend to come is at an event because you're there and you're going to give all or nothing. You know yourself. You
Yeah.
could have an injury at the end of this, but you're going to do it because of the competition.
Yeah. And Chloe Brennan, actually, she's another amazing strong woman. She put a post up on her Instagram the other day, and it was so perfectly put. And it was about a stick of garlic bread, right? But it's like, you don't want to, if you PB in the middle of a prep and It's almost like you get that soggy bit of garlic bread that's not quite cooked, and it's still nice, like, you still enjoy it, it's garlic bread, you like garlic bread, but is it that crispy, finished, beautiful piece of garlic bread that's just perfectly cooked? No, like, you wait for the perfectly cooked piece of garlic bread. So, it was the same, like, the other day in my training, I'm doing behind the neck split jerks, I've never done them before in my life. I did a really easy 122.5 kilos, and my temptation in my head was like, oh, I can go heavier here, like it's feeling good. But then in my head, I'm like, no, like I want that crispy piece of garlic bread in competition in a month's time. Like I don't want to risk hurting myself or pushing too soon. So it's always a case of just protecting yourself and making sure that you're in one piece enough to get that crispy piece of garlic bread on competition day.
It's a good analogy. So shout out to Chloe there.
Yeah.
She's got a very fun Instagram follow as
Yeah.
well, hasn't
I
she?
love her
So
Instagram.
yeah, I think it was just saying I lift those Denny stones really kind of just sort of proved a point. I think
Yeah,
to the
definitely.
smaller ladies out there who do strong woman, because she ain't that big, but she lifted those stones.
She's mighty.
She's got
She's
some
incredible. Like
power.
she's such an incredible athlete. The UK have got so many like talented athletes at so many different weight classes. Like at one point, like the UK women like were just absolutely dominating the sport. We had, I think, in it would have been 8 years of World's Strongest Woman, 7 of them were British, like in a row kind of thing. There was
Really?
only one, and that was Olga, who won World's Strongest Woman in between Donna, Andrea, and I. So like 7 of the last 8 years of World's Strongest Woman have been British athletes.
Is it just because it's more popular in Britain, or what's the reason? What do you think, Becca?
Um, I think it is the fact that Britain is a lot smaller, so strongman is a lot more accessible, and you do have a lot of high-end athletes. And in my opinion, if you surround yourself with people of that caliber, it makes it feel like it's more achievable for you as a person. Like I've got a friend and she was training with like another friend who was slightly weaker than her, and she wasn't really progressing as much as what she does now training with me, because obviously I'm a higher end caliber athlete, and she's looking to me at my weights and she's like, yeah, those are achievable, I can do that. And like she's improving now at a really amazing rate, and it's like because she is training with somebody that's better than her. And in the UK, because it's not that far away, you've got high-end athletes within like an accessible reach. Like in America, like it's you fly in hours to be able to get to some kind of athletes and stuff. So I do think positivity breeds positivity, and training with high-end athletes will help breed high-end athletes.
I've definitely found that by watching World's Strongest Man and World's Strongest Woman, you're very supportive with each other.
Oh yeah,
Is that it must be the only sport that people are really, really supportive, and you kind of you egging the other person on to
yeah,
win, and that kind of I just
definitely.
what is it about that sport? Is it because it's so competitive singularly? You know, it's not a team
I
sport.
think the women are definitely more supportive of each other than the men. But I think the women, we also have like a sense of we know how hard we have fought to get to this point. Like we've fought against stereotypes, we've fought against people telling us that we can't do it. Like we know how much it's taken for us to get to the stages that we're on, and we respect each other a lot for it. So there's a lot of respect in the top level of the sport. And again, we love each other. We're all little misfits. We all like have something wrong with us in our heads. Like, do you know what I mean? I think you have to be part of this sport, and we all just gel, and it's really nice to see. World's Strongest Woman 2023. Me and Lucy Underdown went head to head in the Atlas Stone series, and basically the winner of the stones, or well, I was 2 points behind Lucy. And I knew if Lucy got the last stone, she'd beat me. I finished my stone run and I literally went to cheer her on, and I was shouting at her to get that last stone up. Even though I knew if she got it up, she'd have the title. But I wanted her to get the best out of herself on the day. And that's exactly what it's like at the sport. Like we want each other to do well, we want each other to prosper, and like the best woman at the end of the day wins. And It's an incredible sport to be a part of because it is like one big sisterhood.
It's yeah, I kind of noticed that a lot. It's very much you're all sitting with each other, laughing, having a good crack on behind the scenes, and it is very supportive. And I think that's great because you're all your own individual characters as well, and that's nice to see. You don't
Yeah.
see many sports with that much of an individual kind of character. Yeah, it's
And
interesting to
that's how
see.
I think that it's what I think the sport needs is more advertisement, or not advertisement, but just more people pushing our characters as a person, like to the wider population. Like anyone that stumbles across Strong Woman or is kind of like almost like force fed it in a way, like at the Arnold's when the women were competing on the same stage as the men, people weren't expecting to see the women there, but when they did, they were like, Jesus Christ, these women are like fun. They're fun to watch. Like when people see us and who we are, they enjoy it. And I feel like to grow the sport, there needs to be more publicity of who we are as people.
I've only ever seen it live when it was the time we were in Ireland. Was it 2020 when you and Donna went head to head?
Oh God, yeah.
Because I was making a documentary then, and it's just the whole atmosphere and the vibe. It's one of the best things I've ever watched. I thought it was just phenomenal. You guys were pulling trucks and doing all the nice fun things, especially in the wet, in the rain. And I, the thing is that end Atlas Stone event, which is always the same, it's always the end Atlas Stones. Nobody knew it was about the Stones, and nobody knew who was going to win. And I still didn't know until it was announced at the end because it was so close.
Yeah, there was 1 point in it.
1 point.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
But then I think that's what spurred me on to win World's Strongest Woman that year, because I came second in Britain's Strongest Woman and second in UK Strongest Woman. And it made me hungry for that first. Like, I think that was a turning point for me. Like, I was like, I've come second too many times this year. I'm going for the gold now. And that was the first year that I won Worlds, was that year. So I think coming second in that competition did me the world of good.
But that's the motivation always. Is it hard to kind of motivate yourself when you're on top? So, how many times have you won this now, Becca? How many times? What have you done?
So I've won World's Strongest Woman 3 times now. Um, and it is hard to stay motivated. I'm not going to tell you I'm always motivated, but I am always disciplined. Like I will never miss a training session unless I'm seriously sick. And then I'll be like, okay. But like I'll never be like, oh, I can't be bothered training today, so I won't. Like I will be in the gym. Like I will make sure my training is done. I just want the best for myself, and it's the same for all the women. Like if you slack off and you train, and there's somebody that's going to be biting on your ankles that wants that spot that you've got at the like at the Arnold's. There's this. I know there's a lot of people that want my spot at the Arnold's. There's people at World's Strongest Woman this year asking how they get to it. It's like there are people biting on your heels, and if you rest on your laurels, if you take your foot off the gas, then that's you losing your space and somebody else will happily fill it. So it's definitely a case of you need to keep working and keep progressing to stay at the level that we're at the sport at the minute.
And what's the pressure like there? Because when you're at the top, the only way is down, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the problem. Well, it's not the problem, but it's how the women's sport at the minute is so exciting. Like every major competition last year has a different female champion. Like there's no woman that's dominating every competition at the minute. So you've got Angelica Jardine. She won the big Arnold Ohio competition last year, and then you had Lucy Underdown winning the Arnold UK. You had Inez winning the Rogue Invitational, and you had me winning World's Strongest Woman. They're the 4 main competitions, like really for the women of the professional standard, and there's a different champion for each of them. Like for the men, you've got Mitch Hooper all the way. Like, but for the women at the minute, a different set of events. You get a different champion each time, and it's what makes it exciting.
I want to spin it right back, Becca. Where were you born? Where were you raised? Let's do a little bit of background, please.
So I was born in December 1994 in a little town in North Wales, or a city in North Wales called Bangor. Um, and yeah, I was raised there until, well, basically until I moved to university in Liverpool in 2013. But while I was a child, I definitely didn't have the best of childhoods. From like the age of 12, from birth to the age of 12, I had a picture perfect childhood. Couldn't have
Okay,
been better.
so it was a happy time.
Yeah.
What was the household as well? Mom, dad, brother,
Yeah,
sisters?
so I had my mum, my dad, and then there was five of us kids. I had two older brothers, then there was me, a younger sister, and then a youngest little brother. So I was the middle child. But yeah, it was like a big happy family. There were seven of us. Like we'd be at the hospital nearly every week because every childhood game ended up in an A&E trip. But that's the way that kids were. And I think we were the last kind of generation of kids that never really kind of went on video games and stuff all the time. Behind our house, there used to be this big backfields, and all of the time we used to be out there playing, making dens, and just exploring in nature. Like we wouldn't be the generation of kids you get now, which are just constantly on their iPads and stuff. So I'm kind of thankful for that I had that kind of upbringing where my mum would just lay a table of snacks and drinks for all the kids in the area, and that would be the hub of the street. So we'd just go back and forth, like playing, making dens, coming back for a quick drink, and then running back out again, and just spending our weekends just playing and exploring. And it was really freeing and nice. It was a great childhood. My dad, he worked three jobs just to make sure that we had the money to be able to go on holiday twice a year and have an amazing Christmas, and we had everything that we wanted as kids, and it was nice.
It's good because you brought up around different people as well. So, it's brothers, sisters, and it sounds like it's a nice communal kind of street which you were in.
Yeah, definitely.
So what what was the turning point from 12? It really sticks in your head clearly.
So my mum passed away when I was 12, and I think that then triggered like mental illness in my dad. Um, so he got very, very mentally unwell. And to be honest, I didn't respect how he really felt. Obviously, I was a child, but I didn't take in how bad it would have felt for him losing a long-term partner with five children to look after until later on. We'll get to that part. But yeah, so he had a big mental breakdown, and we weren't looked after as kids after that point. Like he couldn't look after himself, and he was later diagnosed with early onset dementia. So in 2009, we were taken into care because my dad was basically living in a psychiatric unit in a hospital. So the family was very quickly split up, and we were all kind of branded the stereotype of kids in care. And as long as I wasn't committing crime or like letting my grades completely slip in school, and then I was a success in their eyes. There was nobody really pushing me to achieve great things.
So what's that like? Like you've got a happy childhood and one thing changes the whole dynamic of your family from then on. I mean, does it do you look back? Do you reflect? Are you angry? Did it anger you? What was it that kind of changed you?
It made me grow up a lot faster than what I would have liked. I was a 12, 13-year-old kid that took on the weight of responsibility for my other siblings, very much so. And I still now am like the mother of the family. Um, I'm the one that makes sure that my little brother is fine still now, and like I'm the one that my sister comes to when she needs advice, and my brother, like my other brothers, like I am still very much the mother of the family, and that's something that happened to me very, very quickly. Like I knew that somebody needed to step in to make sure that the family at least remained a family because we were all split up and moved into different homes.
Oh, so you didn't kind of be put into one. wh-
No,
How old were you when you moved into the foster care system?
I was 12, maybe 13.
Oh, so it was quite quick. So it was like really
Yeah.
quick that your dad sort of
Yeah, it was
had
very,
issues.
very, very
Really?
quick. Yeah, it was. Um,
Did you feel like you noticed that at the time? Because 12's quite a young age to be very aware of somebody's well-being and mental health and you taking over the reins kind of thing?
Yeah, it was very quick to notice. So my mum passed away right at the start of the summer holidays. Um, and then by January of the next year we were in care. So throughout the whole of the summer holidays we were neglected as kids, and we I remember my dad, he got rid of everything that reminded like him of my mum, but I think that was just his mental health. He was like, I need it gone, and I'm not going to judge him for that. But then that meant a lot of our belongings were had gotten rid of, and I remember going during the summer holidays into town, like where all the shops are, in my school uniform because I had no other clothes. So I was wearing my school uniform in the middle of the summer holidays just because I had nothing else to wear, and we had no food in the cupboards. And I remember going to Tesco and stealing food from Tesco just so me and my siblings could have food to eat because my dad wouldn't cook for us. He wouldn't buy food. He wouldn't wash our clothes. Like I was washing the clothes for the family, or whatever clothes we had. When we went to school in the September, we had holes in our shoes, we had holes in our trousers, like we stank, like we weren't encouraged to shower and bath and things like that, and we were bullied a lot. And I think that's why it made the social services step in so quickly to move us out of that situation. Like it was a very, very noticeable difference from the end of the school year and then my mum passing away and then the start of the next. Like it took less than 3 months for the social services to be like, no, these kids need to leave this area, kind of thing. Um, so yeah, we were, because it was quite like an emergency case. There wasn't anywhere that would have been able to take 5 kids on, so we were all split up and moved into different homes.
Do you think that was the right decision to do?
Yeah, 100%. Like I don't think it was the wrong decision at all. Like we needed to be out of that situation, and it wasn't my dad's fault in the slightest. Like he was very mentally unwell. Like he wasn't able to be in any kind of capacity to look after 5 kids, let alone himself. There was a point, so like at the age of 14, 15, I'd I was obviously looking after my siblings, but then I was also going to meetings with consultants and my dad's social worker and things like that, making sure that he had the best care himself. So again, like I was almost like I turned into the matriarch of the family, making sure that everyone was fine. And it was very, very clear that my dad needed some kind of support. Um, but that's when he was diagnosed with the early onset dementia, and we found him a nursing home, and he he settled down, and we kind of made the best of the situation that we were put into.
So, did you have anybody to go to, Becca? Because it sounds like these adults who you looked up to have now disappeared and you are kind of on your own here.
Mm, I don't know. And
Did foster families help out, or was it not the same, or did you attach to anybody? Was anybody came in? Any?
no, like it was the foster care system back then was awful. Um, I remember basically having my suitcases constantly packed because I never felt like I could unpack my suitcase. I was moving from foster care, like home, constantly. There was nowhere that could take kids in for a long period of time, and it was only really when I was 16 that I settled down a little bit, because they moved me into like my own house in a way, like a little tiny little cottage house in the middle of Bangor, and I was given £70 a week to pay for my gas, electric, my food, my travel to school, everything. And that was hardly anything. I was constantly skint, but at least I had my own little place I could call home for a little bit. So when I was 16, I did start to kind of settle, but then I was still looking after my siblings, making sure that they was okay. My younger brother especially was in a very bad foster placement, um, where he was given pot noodles for tea every night. He was just allowed to go and play on his games, and I think that's when his addiction to video games started, because he wasn't encouraged as a child to go out and do much. So one thing that I took upon myself was every week I'd try and get him involved in a different activity. And I got him involved in tennis lessons. So I'd spend some of my money. And I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but it was like £8.50 every week of my money would be spent on taking my little brother to tennis lessons. It was like £3 each for the bus return, and then it was like £1.50 or £2.50 for the actual lesson, because I wanted him to do something and I took it upon myself to make sure that he was okay and that he was getting some kind of fulfillment from something else other than video games.
It's a lot of money when you're only getting £70 a week, isn't it?
But it was worth every penny to me, knowing that he was enjoying it, seeing his smile coming out of his tennis lessons. I've got a photo on my phone of him coming out of a tennis tournament that he did at the end of like the kind of the cycle of sessions, and he had a little medal in his hand, and his smile just makes me cry whenever I watch it, and we'll see the photo, because it makes me feel like I've done something good, and that's something that I've always wanted to do, is to do good and help people. And I think maybe it did kind of start from then, seeing how much helping somebody, even in a small way, can make a big difference to their lives.
So did this clearly must have had an impact on your life, your schooling, your education, what you wanted to do? What kind of impact did it have?
It had a lot, really. There was nobody telling me to do my homework. There was nobody telling me to revise. There was nobody telling me like to get to school on time, to make sure that I had the right books and the right pens and stuff that I needed. But I I wanted something better for myself than the life that I was living. I could see there were other children. My brother Ben lived in almost like a care home. So he lived with other children in care, and I could see the road that they were kind of taking. And they were doing drugs, they were committing crimes, and they were kind of, the police were involved every 5 minutes. And I was like, I don't want that life. Like, I want to make a better life for myself. And in my head, the only way to do that is to get a good education. So I'd be the one to make sure that I was going to school, that I was revising, that I was getting everything sorted for my exams. And I wanted to go to university, and that was very alien for the people up in North Wales, like the social workers, and they were like, this kid wants to go to university. Because as long as I got myself a job in a retail environment or like fast food chain, like I was a success. They weren't expecting somebody in care to want to achieve something. Um,
Yeah, because it's a social situation just really automatically lowers the bar of
yeah,
of what you can actually get out of life, because that's what it's about. It's where you're born, where you grow up, the financial situation you're in, the social and the family dynamic. It's everything. It's not your fault. It's everything
no.
else that surrounds you, which dictates how successful you can be. So clearly you wanted to push out of that.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I didn't want to be one of those stereotypical kids in care. Like, I wanted to break the mold a little bit and show that it's not the cards that you dealt with in life. It's what you do with those cards that count. It's like a game of poker. Like, and I very much, I just wanted something more than that. I could see the route that they were going down, and I was like, that's not for me. Like, I want to make my parents proud. They raised us as honest kids, as good kids, and we weren't those kind of kids. And I was determined to do everything that I can to prove that we were good kids and we weren't the stereotype that was kind of put on us. We were so embarrassed as kids going into school because we were known as the kids in care. Like, it was embarrassing. And being hit with that stigma and that kind of stereotype constantly wherever I went, it was horrible. Having social workers coming into your class wanting to speak to you, it wasn't the best environment to kind of to try and grow up to be a normal kid. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, it's attention that you don't need. It's the different attention because you just want to get on and fit in. You don't need the kids to have another excuse to pick on you for something else, do you? I mean, school's hard enough, being a kid's hard enough anyway.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you've maintained a positive mental attitude throughout. Was that always the case?
No. I'm not gonna lie and say that I've always had positive days. I've had really down days. I've had days where I have tried committing suicide, especially while I was in university. I
Really?
was,
Because
yeah.
it feels like you're pushing to where you actually want to be. So why would that be? Why would that be the case?
Um, at the end of my second year, I was raped at knife point. Um, while I was on a night out, and it just felt like I'd just broken myself free, and I'm living this amazing life that I've built for myself, and it just came crashing down, and I was just like, it was definitely the straw that broke the camel's back. So I I fell into a really deep, dark depression after that, and going through all of the court case and things like that. And thankfully, he did get sentenced, and I did get my justice, because I know that a rape is something that's not very easy to get a sentence and a charge with. It's not easy to prove, but luckily in my situation it was, and they had the evidence there to prosecute him and send him to jail for it. But it was definitely probably one of the hardest times that I've had to go through.
Something like that, but you kind of, yeah, you've been through loads of bad stuff before that, a lot of shit before that, and this happens to you. Was it one of the cases where you just go, it's never going to end? This is kind of, I'm just, why do I always get all the shit all the time? Did
I
that come into
know.
your head?
Yeah, all the, like a lot of the time. But then it, I had about a year and a half of extreme depression. Like when I was raped, I was like a size 12 to 14. A year and a half later, I was a size 28. I'd put on like over 10 stone in weight.
Really?
Yeah. Like in my head, like if I was that big, then it wouldn't happen to me again. I would just sit and I'd eat takeaways, and I'd wallow in self-pity. But one thing that I did though is I finished my degree, and I'm proud of myself for finishing that degree and getting that degree done. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't go out and see my friends. I basically just became a recluse, other than getting my degree done. Like, yeah, I'd given up on myself at that point. And in that time period, I attempted to kill myself 3 times. It was hard trying to get through that. And the the change in me came when I met Paul, who ended up being my partner. Like, he changed everything for me. So I came to,
So when did you meet Paul then? Was it just after uni or something? Or
yeah, well, it was kind of during. So I was raped in August 2014, and it was May 2016 that I met Paul. So it was just shy of 2 years later. And I was edging on 30 stone. I hated myself. I'd wear baggy black clothing every chance that I got. I didn't take care of myself. I had no reason to want to live. And I met Paul, and at that point, originally he was going to be my personal trainer. So technically, our first date was in the gym. And we very, very quickly had a spark and a connection. And it was the first time since I was 12 that I genuinely felt safe and home. Like, I saw him and I saw safety and warmth. And I know that sounds cliche, but in my heart, there was just something there with him. And he changed everything for me. So I went from this woman that had nothing to live for to this woman that had everything to live for.
Did you seek out the personal training? How did that kind of come together? Was it something you wanted to do? And because you were,
Um,
at this present time, you're not feeling good about yourself. So
yeah,
why the personal training? Why did you get this to go?
it was on Plenty of Fish that we met because I think there was a part of me inside that was still fighting to want to come back to some kind of normality. So I was like, this pipe dream in my head, like I want a partner, I want to be happy. And yeah, there was part of me that wanted to die and didn't want to fight anymore, but there was a fire burning somewhere in me to pick myself up and keep moving forward. And I was on Plenty of Fish and I was like, well, it's not going to do any harm. And then that's how we met. But then we were just talking about the gym because I used to play rugby while I was in university, and that's when the conversation kind of sparked. And I was like, oh, but I've not trained in like 2 years. And he was like, well, I go to the gym a lot. Why don't you come to the gym with me and I'll coach you? And I was like, okay. So at that time, there wasn't really anything romantically kind of expressed in the messages. It was very much a case of, well, I go to the gym. I used to play rugby. Let's just go to the gym together and I'll coach you through some sessions. Um,
Yeah, so it's just a natural kind of relationship, nice natural friendship kind of evolved, isn't it, by
yeah,
like-minded individuals. And yeah, and you must have just felt, yeah, I quite, there's something about them, because you don't know what that instinct is, but that instinct draws you to a person,
yeah.
and that's why you stay with somebody. So let's kind of get into the journey of the personal training and Paul.
So May 2016 we met, and very quickly we fell in love. I think it took 2 weeks for him to tell me he loved me for the first time. Um, a week later, I moved my hamsters into his house. And then 3 weeks after that, I moved into his house.
The hamsters went first, yeah.
That the hamsters went first, yeah. They were like my little judgment of like, is this a serious thing? Will he let me keep my hamsters in his house? I was basically there all the time anyway. I'd probably sleep over at the house like 4 times a week during like the start of May to the end of June. But then the lease in my university building was up at the end of June, and Paul was like, well, instead of you finding somewhere else to live, just move in with me. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, then there's nothing lost. We were already spending so much time together anyway. It just seemed like a sensible thing. So then it was like June, and he was like, you're quite strong, And I was like, hmm. And he was like, he was very much a strongman geek, very, very much a strongman geek. So he'd know information. If you asked him who won World's Strongest Man in 1984, he'd know that information like that. So he was very much into the sport. And he was like, oh, this is a sport called strongman. I think you'd be really good at it. But I don't think there's any kind of women's shows, but I'll have a look for you. So he did a bit of digging around, and the only one kind of competition out there for the women was UK's Strongest Woman. There was no like gym competitions, there was no national competitions, there was nothing. It was literally UK's Strongest Woman, that was it. So it was like, he told me he'd entered me into the competition. I was like, what? And he was like, oh, yeah, you're doing UK's Strongest Woman in September. And I was like, oh, shit. But he said, like, you have the capability to be something big and to do something in this sport. I think you can win World's Strongest Woman within 5 years, was something that he told me at that time. And I was like, we'll see. But what was really heartwarming about that was it was the first time since I was 12 that somebody genuinely believed that I could do something other than myself. Like he had an unwavering belief in me that I could be the world's strongest woman, and he could see it. And I trusted him, and here we went on my strong woman journey. So May 2016 I started training. September 2016 I was UK's strongest woman. And yeah, just kept, I got the bug. It's like getting a tattoo. You get one and you're like, oh, let's go for another one. Let's just keep doing it. And Strong Woman just gave me that sense of purpose in life back. So before I met Paul, like I was lost. And by the time, by that September of 2016, like something had changed in me, and I was like, Becca's back.
I always wonder, did something just tell you to go on? Plenty of fish. Did something kind of just, because you wouldn't have normally went there, and then all of a sudden, because you did, this is the key point that changed your life by meeting Paul. Do you look back? Is there something that you look back on, or do you just go, "Ah, it's just circumstance"? Because some people believe in things, some people don't believe in things.
I definitely think fate is a big thing, and something must have told me like I needed to go on Plenty of Fish and look for the next like adventure, or at least look for something. And yeah, Paul just ended up being there, and yeah, fate is definitely a big part of it. I'm a big believer in fate.
But you have to put yourself in the situation so fate can take its action. Because it sounds like you've done that. You've battled through everything. You got through the childhood. You drove forward. You got through university. You drove forward. You finished your university. You drove forward. You got in touch on Plenty of Fish. You kept that moving, and then it's yeah, it kind of it's led you on to push. So you must have that clearly in the back of your mind. And what do you tap into that when you're in competitions and when you're in training? What do you tap into? Do you look back to your childhood, or do you not? Do you need that?
I have a lot of people in my head that I'm doing this sport for, and it's not just for me. It is for the people that are told like they can't do something. It's the people that like the women that are told they shouldn't be doing this sport because they're women and they're not men. Like there's kids like kids in care that aren't expected to achieve anything in their life, and I want to be that person that's like, I was in your position and look at where I am now. Um, so I do feel like there is a lot of pressure from that, like resting on what I do in the gym and how I perform and stuff, because I want to be that inspiration, the role model that I never had as a kid in care. Um, Especially now, I go and do big conferences for foster Wales and things like that. And I do talks in front of social workers and in front of foster parents, and I tell them my journey, and I inspire, well, hopefully inspire them to push the kids that they are looking after to do big things in their life. Like they don't have to be another statistic of a child in care. Um, so yeah, I do think there is a responsibility on me, like a little bit to kind of be that person. But then it's a privilege as well to be able to be that person.
So you're in the middle of strong woman. You training. Are you working as well at this time? Are you kind of yeah? So you're doing a full-time job and just being world's strongest woman as well. Yeah, just kind
Yeah,
of.
apparently. But yeah, I do have to work full time. My job isn't strenuous or stressful. I lie in bed with my laptop. Like it's not a bad job to have. Just to kind of have that stability. And up until about 3 years ago, there was no money in the sport of strong women, and we just did it for the love of it.
Yeah,
Um,
it's never been known to even the men's side of things. I, I'm it's unbelievable that there isn't a big paycheck at the end of it. So what's that like to compete in something knowing that you might not? I don't know what is it. What is that keeps you there?
I see a sense of achievement, like I have achieved this, and I have gone down in the history books as winning UK's strongest woman, as winning world's strongest woman. It's something to work for that's positive and It keeps me active. It keeps me going to the gym. And a strong woman is more than just the trophies. It's the experience, and it's something that I really advocate for, especially people getting into the sport. It's like go and enjoy it. Like it's an experience you will never get anywhere else where you get to go and travel the world. And if you've got the means to, go and do it. Like meet new people, experience the joy that Strong Woman gives you and the empowerment that you feel by stepping on that stage and lifting those weights. It's an empowerment I've never felt before in my life before starting this sport. It makes me feel strong physically, but also makes me feel strong mentally.
Yeah, because you're not going to work with somebody else. There's only you who can achieve
Yeah,
this. No one's helping you here. No one's lifting that weight for you, are
it's you're lifting that weight based on the blood, sweat, and tears you've put in that prep. So it's definitely like a big sense of empowerment and achievement, and I think that's maybe why I took to it so much because after I was raped, I felt weak mentally and weak physically, and I felt like I didn't own my own body. I felt a very big disconnection between my mind and my body. Strong Woman gave me that connection back, and it makes me feel strong, but in so many ways other than just physical strength.
So I know clearly Paul is a massive kind of part of your training, and he was by your side for quite a long time. Um, I wanted to ask um, what happened and what changed in life with Paul.
Um, So I fulfilled his little prophecy in that he told me in 2020, well, 2016, that I'd win World's Strongest Woman in 5 years. And 2021, I won my first World's Strongest Woman title. Um, but then in March 2022, he was diagnosed with heart failure, and he was in and out of hospital basically the whole of March. And to be honest, like in the September, he had a scan and his heart was improving. So your heart tends to function at like 55% is like the kind of what they measure it at. And in March, his heart was at 14%, which is really bad. But then by his September scan, it had gone back up to 27%, which again, it's half the efficiency it should be, but it was improving. So we were kind of like thinking, okay, we've got on top of this. We can kind of make our way through it, and we can navigate these waters, so you can still live like a long and healthy life. But um, in December 2022, he had a heart attack in bed, and he passed away. So that was tough. And I think that was the worst day of my entire life. Like watching him have a heart attack, having to pull him out of bed and perform CPR on your own partner. Yeah, it was hard. Because it was almost like at that time, I'd lost my soulmate, I'd lost my best friend, lost the person that believed in me, and not just believed, but really believed in me. Um, yeah, I lost a lot that day.
And how was that? How did that change you?
It's it's made me want to kind of push forward more because I don't want his belief and his sacrifice to go to waste. He sacrificed a lot to get me to the point where I was. Um, he wanted to be a strong man himself, but he'd put his training to the side to set up my weights for me to kind of coach me through my sessions. So he never really got the time to be able to do his own work. He put everything into like making me the strong woman that I was at that time. So one thing that he told me is he thinks that I can be a 5-time world's strongest woman, and that's something that I am going to do. There's going to be no question about it. It's something that I will do, um, to honour him and to kind of to show him that he was right. Because we got ridiculed so much in our journey. Like there were so many people before I even won my first title saying that I'd never kind of get there. But Paul's belief didn't waver once. So I want to kind of fulfill his other little prophecy and get that 5 titles. And again, I want to be that person to help inspire people to like, even if you've been through the worst things in life imaginable, like there is still that chance that you can be happy. I did an interview not long ago where I said, like, after Paul died, I had 2 options. I was like, I can either wallow in grief and waste my life away, and that would have been a socially acceptable thing to do. I've just lost my partner of 7 years. Or I'm sat here now as the current UK's, Europe's, and world's strongest woman. It's like, which one would you want? It's like, I will always, always look for the positives in life. And I will always make a conscious decision to try and be happy. Because I do feel like happiness is a choice. And I will always look for the happiness, and I will always try and look for the positives and keep putting one foot in front of another. And that in turn has helped inspire so many more people. Seeing what I've been through and what I've achieved, it helps them make their life feel a bit easier.
I mean, what's it like going back to training when Paul's not there? Because Paul's always there. What, what's that like, Becca?
Firstly, it was horrible because Paul used to load all my weights for me. I was a little princess in the gym, so I had to get used to loading my own plates. um, but no, in seriousness, it was tough.
How do you drag yourself back there, or do you go there because you want to forget, you want to train through it, you want?
The gym is so good for my mental health. Like I notice when I have a week where I don't go to the gym, like say if I'm deloading, or last year I had COVID, so I was really unwell, so I didn't go to the gym for a week, and I just couldn't sleep. As soon as I went to the gym, I slept like a baby that night. Like the gym is so good for me mentally, and it's something that has really, really kept me on track with my mental health. It gets me something to make sure that I'm eating right, because I can't go to the gym if I've not eaten. So then again, like it makes sure that I'm getting my food in, it makes sure that I'm trying to stick to a routine. Especially going through the grief that I was going through, like the gym was something that helped me so much just stay on track with everything, with making sure that I was eating, sleeping, drinking, making sure that I was actually leaving the house and not staying in the house constantly wallowing. Like it was somewhere that I could go where I had friends, where I could talk to people, where I could just kind of let my feelings out and on the iron rather than like self implode.
And did you think, here we go again? Because you keep losing a lot of people and you keep having major incidents throughout your life at such a young age as well, Becca. You got some scars, you know, you got, but it's probably thickened the armor, you know, thickened the skin, but you didn't ask for it.
No, I didn't ask for it, and I'm not angry that it's happened. Like, obviously, I'm upset. And would I, if I could do anything right now to have Paul back with me? Yeah, 100%. But it's helped me so much as a person understand what my purpose is in life. And it's more than this sport. Like, this sport is just almost like a byproduct of what I feel like my final purpose is, and that's just to help other people. And it's something that I'm just so passionate about, and it's given me a platform to be able to share my story. Like I'm not somebody that is afraid of sharing my vulnerabilities and when I'm having a bad day and what normal life is for me. Like I want people to be able to relate to me and know that there is somebody out there that has been through bad things but is still choosing to kind of put one foot in front of the other and keep moving forward. I had a message from somebody not long back, where she was like, because of you, I'm here in the gym on a stupid Sunday morning in the rain instead of wallowing like in my self-pity. And I get messages like that a lot where because of me, people are getting out and doing something. And there was a woman, I was at Wales' Strongest Woman, and there was a woman that came up to me and she said, because of you, I held my head up in work the other day, confident of who I am, because she'd lost confidence in herself because she was plus size. She hated the way she looked. But then she saw me as a plus size woman going out there and being who I want to be and taking up space and knowing what I'm worth. To know that I'm having that effect on other people and knowing that they're taking up the space that they deserve in this world because they've seen me do it, it makes me feel just, I would hand back every single one of my trophies to be able to do that to 50 more people.
You've been on quite a journey, Becca, and from where you were at rock bottom to where you are now, is there any, do you feel there's more to go? Do you think there's more like you can improve in yourself, or are you just moving forward with what you do?
I think there's definitely more that I can do to improve myself as a person. Like, I do still get my bad days. We're all human. Like, I do still get days where I'm crying for hours on end, but then that's when I reach out to my mates, and I've got such an amazing support system. And it takes a village, definitely, to kind of to bring people up and to kind of to help people through life, because life can be shit. Like, we all know life can be shit, and I'm sorry for swearing. But it's the people that you kind of surround yourself with that makes life that little bit less. So yeah, like, I do think there's still a lot to come from me, like in the sport and in life.
And a final message to somebody out there. You probably, I think you've just dropped about 5 lovely messages throughout, but a final piece to somebody out there who's struggling.
Just keep moving one foot in front of the other, and you are not the product of what has happened to you. You can always choose to look for the positives, and there will always be positives in whatever situation you're going through. There will always be positives, and just hang on to those positives and keep looking towards them.
Brilliant. Thanks, Becca. Fantastic. Brilliant. Lovely. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That was great. That was great.
I'm sorry that ended up being quite deep.